There's a set of tires sitting on a shelf right now for $210. 10 feet away, on that exact same shelf, sits a tire that costs $340 more per set. Same tread pattern, same rubber compound. Some of them roll off the exact same production line, on the exact same day, in the exact same factory, before they ever get split up and shipped to different warehouses under different names. The only real difference between them is the name stamped into the sidewall. Tire shops count on you never finding that out. Walk into most shops and the salesman isn't selling you rubber, he's selling you a badge, and he's betting that when you see two names you don't fully recognize, you'll default to the one that sounds more expensive because it feels safer. That instinct alone is costing regular drivers hundreds of dollars a set, and it's been happening at counters across the country for years, quietly, without anyone calling it out. Nobody's lying to your face when it happens. Nobody's forging a spec sheet or handing you a fake warranty card. It's just a name doing exactly what a name is designed to do, and most people never stop to ask what's actually sitting underneath it. So here are 9 all-terrain tires that get overlooked, underestimated, or flat-out ignored by shoppers who don't know what they're actually looking at. Some of these are quietly owned by the biggest names in the entire tire industry. Some of them are already bolted onto vehicles you'd never expect, vehicles that cost more than most people's cars. A couple of them are sitting in stores you walk into every single week for completely unrelated reasons, and you've probably driven right past them in the tire aisle without a second glance. And by the end of this, you're going to walk away with 4 tests you can run on literally any tire, on any shelf, anywhere, to tell whether you're paying for real engineering or just paying for a name that sounds premium. Let's start with the brand almost everybody underestimates, and ironically, it gets underestimated for the exact opposite reason most cheap tires do. Number 1. Kumho Road Venture. Say the word Kumho out loud in a tire shop and watch what happens to the guy standing next to you. Somebody's going to make a face. That reaction, the whole cheap Korean tire reputation, doesn't line up even slightly with who actually trusts Kumho enough to put their tires on brand new vehicles straight off the assembly line. Kumho has been building tires since 1960, and today it supplies original equipment rubber to BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Hyundai. Think about what that actually requires. A German automaker with a reputation to protect doesn't hand over a factory fitment contract to a company that can't hold up under real engineering scrutiny. Every one of those cars leaves the factory riding on tires that passed a testing gauntlet most everyday consumers never see and never think about. The Road Venture AT52 carries that same engineering pedigree straight into the all-terrain category, the same category most drivers assume is dominated entirely by the big 4 names. It balances wet road grip, loose dirt traction on a rutted trail, and a severe snow rating that a lot of budget tires simply don't earn, because earning that rating actually costs money in testing and compound development. And here's the part that should bother you a little. The price reflects none of that testing pedigree. You're looking at somewhere around $170 a tire, which typically runs 20 to 40% under a comparable Michelin or Bridgestone all-terrain in the same size. You are not getting a lesser tire for that discount. You're simply skipping the name that BMW's own engineering department already vetted for you for free before you ever walked into the shop. This is the tire that makes the most sense if your truck spends most of its life on pavement, with the occasional dirt road driveway or gravel campsite thrown in. It's not chasing rock crawlers or mud bogs. It's chasing the daily commuter who wants real snow capability for the 2 months a year that actually matters, without paying a badge tax for the other 10. The next tire on this list has a parent company that almost nobody standing at the counter actually connects to what they're buying. Number 2. Cooper Discoverer. For a lot of people, Cooper still feels like the tire your dad bought back in the 90s, because it was cheap, it worked, and nobody in the family ever thought twice about it again. That reputation hasn't caught up to something that actually happened in 2021. Goodyear bought Cooper Tire outright, in a deal worth close to $2.5 billion, one of the largest acquisitions in the modern tire industry. Cooper kept its own name stamped on the sidewall. Goodyear kept the manufacturing standards, the engineering resources, and the research budget, and quietly folded Cooper into one of the largest tire operations on the continent without changing a single letter on the box. The Discoverer AT3 runs quiet on the highway at 70 miles an hour, tows a trailer without complaint on a grade, and handles a gravel back road the way you'd expect from a tire built with Goodyear-level resources sitting behind it. Put it next to a Goodyear Wrangler in the exact same size, and Cooper typically comes in $50 to $60 cheaper per tire, sometimes more depending on the retailer. Same manufacturing muscle, same corporate parent. A different name doing the asking at the register. If you're the kind of driver who tows a camper twice a summer and otherwise just wants a comfortable ride to work, this is one of the easiest recommendations on the entire list. It's not the loudest or most aggressive tread here, and that's actually the point. It's built for people who need capability in reserve, not capability on display. Before we go any further down this list, one thing worth saying out loud, because it matters for everything you're about to hear. Nobody paid to be on here. No tire brand sponsored this video, no manufacturer sent free product, and nothing in the next several minutes is an ad read wearing a disguise. Every single tire on this list earned its spot by clearing 4 specific checks, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what those checks are right now, because you can run every single one of them yourself the next time you're standing in a tire shop trying to decide between 2 names you've genuinely never heard of. The first check is the treadwear rating stamped directly into the sidewall, a number most shoppers walk right past without ever reading it. Anything sitting around 300 is a balanced, average lifespan for daily driving. 500 and above means the tire is genuinely built to last through years of regular use. Anything hovering down near 200 is going to wear out fast, no matter how good the sticker price looks sitting on the shelf, so that single number alone can save you from a bad purchase before you've even asked the salesman a single question about brand reputation. The second check is the load index and speed rating, and this one actually matters for your safety, not just for your wallet. Whatever number is printed on your door jamb sticker, the replacement tire has to match it or beat it, full stop, no exceptions. Go below that number to save a few dollars, and you haven't found a deal at all. You've found a safety problem that happens to be wearing a discount sticker, and it won't announce itself until you're already loaded down on a highway somewhere. The third check is ownership, and this is the one that ties directly back to everything on this list. Who actually stands behind the name printed on that sidewall? If a smaller, less familiar brand is backed by Continental, Michelin, Goodyear, Bridgestone, or Hankook, that means real engineering budget is hiding underneath a name that sounds like a bargain bin option at first glance. If nobody at the counter can actually tell you who owns the company, or the box gives you nothing to go on, that's exactly the moment to slow down and start asking more questions before you hand over your card. And the fourth check is the DOT date code, 4 digits stamped directly into the sidewall that tell you the exact week and year the tire was manufactured. Rubber doesn't stop aging just because it's sitting in a warehouse instead of mounted on a truck rolling down the highway. A 5-year-old tire that has never once touched a road is still, chemically, a 5-year-old tire. And that matters a lot more than most buyers ever realize when they're just chasing the lowest number on the price tag. Run those 4 checks on anything you're about to hand your money over for, and the inflated premium tire markup has a tendency to disappear right in front of you, almost every single time. Picture how that actually plays out at the counter. Someone points you toward a name brand tire at $240, and right next to it sits something you don't recognize at $150. Instead of asking which one feels more trustworthy, you ask 3 questions. What's the treadwear number? Who owns this brand? And how old is this specific tire sitting in front of me right now, not the model in general? Most salespeople have never been asked any of those 3 questions in that order, and the answers tend to tell you everything the sticker price was hiding. Now, back to the list, because we've still got 7 tires left, and some of the best reveals are still coming. The next name gets overlooked for the exact opposite reason Kumho does. Nobody's ever even heard of it in the first place, and that silence is doing all the heavy lifting. Number 3. General Grabber. Most shoppers walk straight past General because the name itself sounds like the generic option, the tire aisle equivalent of a store-brand cereal box sitting next to the name brand. That instinct, that gut reaction to keep walking, is exactly why General stays one of the best deals in this entire category, year after year. General Tire has been owned by Continental since 1987, and Continental is one of the largest tire manufacturers on the entire planet, with a research and development budget that most independent companies could never dream of matching. Decades of Continental's own engineering quietly filters down into General's lineup, long after the expensive development work has already been paid for by Continental's premium customers on the other side of the showroom. This isn't some cheap knockoff riding on borrowed branding for a quick sale. It's trickle-down engineering, plain and simple, the exact same way a lot of luxury car features eventually show up in economy models a few years later. The Grabber ATX carries a 3-peak mountain snowflake rating in several of its available sizes, holds its own confidently on mud and loose gravel, and stays surprisingly quiet on the highway for a tread pattern this aggressive. In a common truck size, you're looking at somewhere around $140 a tire. A comparable Continental all-terrain in that exact same size runs closer to $180. That's Continental's own engineering, hiding under a name most shoppers walk right past on their way to something that just sounds more expensive. This is a genuinely good pick for anyone running a work truck that needs to handle a job site during the week and a family road trip on the weekend without switching tires between the two. It's the kind of all-around capability that doesn't announce itself with an aggressive look, which is exactly why it gets ignored on the shelf. And General isn't even the biggest company quietly hiding behind a smaller, humbler-sounding badge on this entire list. Number 4. Laufenn X-Fit. Laufenn gets skipped constantly for one simple reason. Most people have genuinely never heard the name before in their life, which means the smarter shoppers get to quietly take advantage of that gap in awareness, while everyone else keeps walking past toward a familiar logo. Laufenn is Hankook's global value brand, developed inside Hankook's own primary technical research centers, sharing the exact same infrastructure as a company that ranks among the largest tire manufacturers anywhere in the world, minus the premium price tag that comes attached to the Hankook name itself once it hits the shelf. The X-Fit AT delivers solid, predictable, everyday traction, built on the same core engineering approach that made Hankook a trusted original equipment supplier to major automakers in the first place, decades before Laufenn ever existed as its own separate brand. Compare it to a Hankook Dynapro in a similar all-terrain build and size, and a full set of Laufenn tires often runs well over $100 less across all four corners. Same engineering playbook, same parent company cutting the checks behind the scenes, just a different name printed on the box at checkout. If your priority is simply getting the most miles out of a set of tires without babying them, Laufenn tends to be the tire budget-focused fleet buyers and rental companies quietly gravitate toward, precisely because the value math works out the same way for a business as it does for a single driver. The next tire on this list changes the entire shape of what we've been talking about so far, because for once, there's no giant parent company hiding quietly behind the badge at all. Number 5. Toyo Open Country. Toyo takes a completely different road than every other brand we've covered so far on this list. Built in Japan since 1945, Toyo earned its reputation the hard way, through decades of grueling off-road racing and short-course truck competition, long before it ever became a mainstream retail option sitting on shelves in ordinary tire shops. Nobody handed Toyo a reputation on a silver platter. They built it on a racetrack, through actual competition, against actual failure. The Open Country AT3 carries a severe snow rating and stays composed on the highway in a way that a lot of aggressive all-terrain tires simply don't manage once you push past 60 miles an hour. It typically runs around $180 a tire, noticeably below what you'd pay for a comparable BF Goodrich or Michelin all-terrain in the same size, while still matching those much bigger names on tread life and towing manners out on the highway. There's no parent company quietly subsidizing that lower price tag here. Toyo is competing purely on engineering, without a corporate badge to lean on when things get tough, and that independence is exactly why off-road enthusiasts tend to trust the name. This is the tire people who actually spend weekends on real trails, not just gravel driveways, tend to circle back to after trying 2 or 3 cheaper options first. It costs more than most of the tires on this list, but it's earning that price through decades of racing, not through marketing spend. The next brand's parent company doesn't just build ordinary tires for ordinary cars. It builds tires for some of the most demanding, most expensive sports cars currently on the road. Number 6. Nexen Roadian. Nexen gets written off constantly as just another cheap import from Korea, and that dismissal falls apart completely the moment you actually look at who's putting Nexen tires on their vehicles straight from the factory floor. Nexen supplies original equipment tires across more than 80 different vehicle models, for automakers including Porsche, Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Hyundai, Kia, and Jeep. That list includes Porsche's own Cayenne and Macan SUVs, riding on Nexen rubber the moment they roll off the assembly line, before a single customer ever test drives one. Sit with that for a second. Porsche does not gamble its entire handling reputation, the thing the brand is built on, by putting tires on their vehicles that can't hold up to Porsche's own internal engineering standards. The Roadian ATX runs around $130 a tire, quiet enough for a daily commute through city traffic, capable enough that a weekend trail doesn't feel like you're compromising anything just to save money. You're looking at a tire that cleared an actual Porsche inspection process, sitting on a regular tire shop shelf for roughly a third of what the badge upstairs would cost you for something engineered to a very similar standard. Anyone cross-shopping SUVs that already came standard with Nexen from the factory already trust this tire without knowing it. Buying it as a replacement isn't a downgrade. It's just buying the same tire the manufacturer already picked, without the dealership markup attached to it. The next parent company on this list isn't European at all. It's a Japanese manufacturer pouring serious research money into a brand that most independent, standalone tire companies simply cannot compete with on a level playing field. Number 7. Falken Wild Peak. A lot of shoppers still write Falken off as just another discount brand cluttering up the bottom shelf, and the truth is sitting right there in the mold design if you actually take the time to look closely at it. The Wild Peak AT4W uses an engineered upper sidewall block along with a specialized silica compound specifically designed to resist chunking under heavy rock loads out on the trail. Technology that usually stays locked inside premium, Tier 1 heavy-duty tire lines that cost significantly more. Falken is owned by Sumitomo Rubber Industries, a major Japanese manufacturer with the kind of deep research budget that most standalone tire companies simply don't have access to, no matter how good their engineers are on paper. The Wild Peak carries a severe snow rating and grips confidently in genuinely wet conditions, the exact kind of all-around performance you'd normally expect to pay a real premium for at checkout. Look at the actual numbers though, side by side. You're looking at around $160 a tire, against roughly $220 for a comparable BF Goodrich KO2 in that same size and load rating. That's $60 a tire, same segment, same snow rating, same category of off-road capability on paper. That difference is Sumitomo's own research budget working quietly in your favor for once, instead of padding out a shareholder report somewhere on the other side of the world. This tends to be the pick for drivers who want the aggressive, chunky look of a hardcore off-road tire without actually paying hardcore off-road prices, and who still want to feel confident driving through an unexpected snowstorm on the way home from work. 2 tires left on this list, and I promised you one honest exception earlier. Here it is, right on schedule. Number 8. Silune Terramax. Here's the one tire on this entire list that doesn't have a giant parent company quietly footing the engineering bill behind the scenes. And it's worth being completely straightforward about that fact, because that honesty is exactly how you tell a genuine deal apart from a trap dressed up to look like one. Silune isn't backed by Michelin, Continental, Goodyear, or any of the names we've already covered on this list. It's a fully independent manufacturer, which means there's no shared premium research quietly riding underneath the price tag the way there is with General or Laufenn. Some owners do report a bit more road noise creeping in as the tire wears down over time, And that's a real trade-off you're accepting going into the purchase, not something buried in fine print you'll discover later and feel misled about. The Terramax AT typically runs around $110 a tire, hundreds of dollars less across a full set compared to the premium options we've already covered, while still delivering genuinely solid capability on gravel roads, mud, and light snow. If you'd honestly rather replace a cheaper tire a little sooner than pay double the price for a name you simply recognize from advertising, that's a calculated trade-off you're making with your eyes open, not a desperate one made out of ignorance. And that distinction is worth knowing before you hand over your money, not after you're already 3,000 miles into a set you regret. Nobody's going to walk up and volunteer that information at the counter, because it doesn't make for a great sales pitch. But it's still an honest tire doing exactly what it says on the label, which puts it ahead of a lot of options on a shelf that pretend to be something they're not. This is the tire for someone replacing a beater truck's tires on a tight budget, who'd rather spend the difference on something else entirely and just plan to replace the set a little earlier than they would with a premium option. It's an honest trade, and it's a valid one. Last tire on the list, and this is the ownership situation that almost nobody standing in a tire aisle actually knows about, even people who've bought tires there for years. Number 9. Douglas All-Terrain. Douglas is a tire brand sold almost exclusively through one massive big-box retailer, and most shoppers walking past it assume it's some anonymous overseas manufacturer slapping a forgettable name on cheap rubber just to move volume off the shelf as fast as possible. That assumption isn't just wrong, it's actually backwards from reality. Douglas tires are produced by Cooper, the exact same manufacturer behind item number 2 on this list, which means Douglas sits inside the same manufacturing network now owned outright by Goodyear. Picture that for a second. You're standing in a big box store looking at a house brand tire that sounds like it came from absolutely nowhere, and it actually came off the same manufacturing standards as a name brand you'd pay significantly more for at a dedicated tire shop across town. The Douglas All-Terrain typically runs well under $120 a tire, one of the lowest price points on this entire list, while still carrying manufacturing DNA from a company with decades of tire engineering behind it. It's not going to outperform the Discoverer at the very top of its game on a technical trail, but for the price gap between the two, most drivers commuting to work or heading out for a weekend trip are never going to notice the difference. If you're already making a trip to that store anyway for groceries or a hardware run, this is the tire that turns a routine errand into a tire purchase that doesn't require a separate stop, a separate appointment, or a separate markup layered on top for convenience. So there they are. 9 all-terrain tires, and 8 of them are quietly backed by companies you already trust every single day, without realizing it. Whether that's the badge sitting on your own vehicle in the driveway, the automaker your neighbor drives to work, or the retailer you already shop at for everything else in your life. Run back through what we actually covered, because the pattern only really sinks in once you hear it stacked together. Kumho, quietly cleared by BMW and Mercedes before it ever reached the shelf. Cooper, owned outright by Goodyear since 2021. General, Continental's own engineering sitting under a name that sounds like the store brand. Laufenn, Hankook's research budget with the Hankook price tag removed. Toyo, no parent company at all, just decades of racing paying off in the price. Nexen, trusted enough for a Porsche Cayenne to ride on it from the factory. Falcon, Sumitomo's research hiding under a name people assume is discount. Sailoon, the one honest independent on the list, cheaper because it's actually cheaper to make, not because it's hiding anything. And Douglas, sitting on a big box shelf, built by the same company as the Discoverer 3 names above it. Here's the pattern worth actually remembering out of all of this, because it applies to a lot more than just tires sitting in a shop. The name printed on the box is marketing. That's all it ever was. The engineering underneath it is either genuinely there, backed by real research and real testing, or it simply isn't, and now you know exactly how to check for yourself instead of guessing based on which logo looks more expensive. Look at the treadwear rating before anything else. Match the load index to your own door jamb sticker, not to whatever number sounds impressive. Find out who actually owns the company standing behind the name on the sidewall. And check the DOT date code before anything ever gets mounted on your vehicle, because a great tire that's already 5 years old sitting in a warehouse isn't actually a great deal anymore. Run those 4 checks the next time you're standing in front of a wall of tires you don't recognize, and you'll walk out having paid for rubber and real engineering instead of paying for a badge that BMW, Porsche, or Continental already quietly vetted for free, long before you ever walked through the door. That $210 tire from the very start of this video and the $350 one sitting right next to it on the same shelf might genuinely be the same tire, built in the same factory, on the same production line. Now you actually know how to tell the difference, instead of just guessing and hoping you made the right call. One more thing worth saying honestly before you go price shopping off the back of this. Every dollar figure in this video is a rough, real-world range, not a promise printed in stone. Prices shift by region, by retailer, by whatever's happening with rubber costs that particular month, and a shop 2 towns over might be running a completely different number than the one down the street from you. Use these numbers as a baseline for the gap between brands, not as a guarantee of what you'll pay at checkout, and always confirm current pricing and availability with your own local shop before you commit to a set. The relationship between the names matters more than the exact digits, because that relationship, who owns who, doesn't change nearly as often as the price tag does. If this saved you from overpaying on your next set, that's exactly what this channel exists to do. There's more of this kind of breakdown coming, the stuff that usually gets buried under somebody else's marketing budget, so stick around, because the next one's already on the way, and it probably covers something sitting in your garage or driveway right now that you've never once thought to question.